The United States has lost at least 45 MQ-9 Reaper drones in its war with Iran. That is roughly a quarter of its fleet. More than $1.3 billion worth of equipment is gone. Some were shot down, others were destroyed on the ground. And now, almost simultaneously, India has signed a 1,943 crore rupee deal to lease two drones from the same MQ-9 family. India is also buying 31 MQ-9Bs in a much larger deal. It sounds contradictory. Why buy an expensive drone whose older cousin has suffered brutal losses against Iran? Is India buying yesterday's warfare, or is Delhi planning to use the MQ-9s for a completely different battle? Here is the real story. First, let's talk about the American losses and why the MQ-9 does not have an impressive record. According to the Washington Post, citing 3 US officials, the American military has lost at least 45 MQ-9 Reaper drones during its war with Iran, roughly 25% of its entire pre-war fleet. When the conflict began in Feb, the US had around 185 Reapers in service. The financial hit alone crosses $1.3 billion, with each drone costing between $30 and $50 million. Not every loss came from enemy fire either. Officials say some drones simply crashed after communication links between the aircraft and its operator failed. Now here's the paradox. America lost dozens of Reapers, and yet the US Air Force chief called the MQ-9 the most valuable player of the Iran war. Why? Well, because those drones were being used heavily. Surveillance, target detection, tracking, strike missions, and persistent coverage. The US hit more than 13,000 targets during 6 weeks of heavy fighting. And Air Force Chief General Kenneth Wilsbach said Reapers conducted many strikes. So attrition does not automatically mean uselessness. Sometimes it means a platform was repeatedly exposed because commanders found it valuable. But Iran demonstrated something else too. Using a $30 million plus drone for missions where cheap air defense missiles can kill it is a terrible economic exchange. The Pentagon itself is now looking for cheaper, more expendable alternatives for the highest risk missions. On August 17th, India's Ministry of Defence signed a fresh 1,943 crore rupee deal with General Atomics, leasing two MQ-9B Sea Guardian drones for the Indian Navy for a period of 30 months. This is not India's first experience with the platform. The Navy has already operated two Sea Guardians on lease since 2020. This new lease is designed to bridge a gap because that original lease expires in early 2027, well before India's much larger order of 31 MQ-9B drones. A $4 billion deal signed in October 2024 starts delivering from 2028 onward. Now here's the difference. Delhi is acquiring the MQ-9B, not the older MQ-9A Reaper that bore the brunt of American losses. Same family but different generation. India's package includes Sea Guardian variants for maritime missions and Sky Guardian variants for land operations. The US approved a package of 31 MQ-9Bs along with sensors and weapons, including Hellfire missiles and laser-guided small diameter bombs. India has an ocean-sized problem. Look at India's map. More than 7,500 kilometers of coastline, the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and an enormous Indian Ocean region to guard. India cannot patrol all of that with fighter jets. A fighter stays airborne for hours. A hail drone can remain on station for far longer. The MQ-9B is designed precisely for this kind of mission. Fly high, stay airborne, scan huge areas, track ships, and send information back continuously. That is why the US Army Strategic Assessment is, it says that India's MQ-9Bs will improve persistent intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, along with long-range precision strike capability. And there is a big lesson India should keep in mind from the drone's failure against Iran. Not to use an MQ-9B as though it were an F-35. Avoid sending it into dense enemy air defense and avoid thinking that altitude makes it invulnerable, and avoid tens of millions of dollars doing a job a cheaper drone can perform. Against China or Pakistan in a high-density war, MQ-9Bs operating deep inside defended airspace would face serious risk. Iran has proved that point. So India's best use case lies elsewhere. The Indian Ocean, long-range surveillance, anti-submarine support, monitoring shipping lanes, tracking suspicious vessels, intelligence gathering, and potentially standoff strikes where enemy air defenses have already been suppressed. This two-drone lease is really a stopgap, not India's core drone strategy. The real weight sits in that 31 drone deal, 15 Sea Guardians for the Navy and 8 Sky Guardians each for the Army and Air Force, arriving with Hellfire missiles and precision-guided bombs attached. That makes India the first country outside the NATO bloc to operate this platform, joining the US, UK, Japan and Belgium as MQ-9B operators. For India, this is not experimental technology. It's filling a genuine, long-standing surveillance gap along both its maritime borders and its contested land frontier with China. America lost drones fighting a shooting war over hostile defended territory. India is deploying the same aircraft for persistent surveillance over open ocean, a completely different risk profile. That said, India is not blind to the vulnerability either. One of its own Sea Guardians was lost to a technical fault back in 2023, a reminder that these platforms are not invincible anywhere. But for India, the calculation is straightforward. It needs eyes over the Indian Ocean and its northern borders right now, and the MQ-9B remains the most capable option available while its own indigenous drone programs continue catching up. The Iran war exposed a real weakness in a specific high-threat environment. India's bet is that its own mission profile simply does not carry that same exposure.
The old rules are breaking. Alliances are shifting.
Apologize again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Wars are redrawing maps. Oil routes can shake economies overnight. One election in America can impact markets in Mumbai.
No tax on tips.
One move by China can alter the balance in Asia. One conflict in West Asia can hit every Indian household. This is no longer a distant story. This is our story. Your story. Because for the first time in decades, India is not watching from the sidelines. India is rising. India is negotiating. India is balancing rivals. India is building military strength. India is shaping trade routes. India is becoming central to the new global order. And yet, most global news is still told through someone else's lens. Washington's lens, Beijing's lens, London's lens. But where is India's lens? Where is the platform that explains the world from our perspective? Welcome to India's Axis, a new destination for geopolitics, strategy and power seen through India's eyes, from Neighborhood Watch to the biggest global stories that matter to you. Why tensions in the Taiwan Strait matter to India, how one move by China can affect India's security, what turmoil in Pakistan means for regional stability, how Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bhutan shape India's neighborhood, why oil choke points can hit your wallet, how wars abroad can reshape India's security. This is not noise. This is not shouting. This is not recycled headlines. This is sharp, intelligent storytelling, daily explainers, war room analysis, strategic conversations, because news is everywhere. But perspective is rare, and in the age of confusion, clarity is power. Axis is for the audience that wants more than headlines. The axis of global power is shifting. India is at the center of that shift. It's time the world was explained accordingly, to understand the world through India's strategic lens. Subscribe now.